Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Charlie State and Naga Munchetti.
Our headlines today. Hopes for foreign holidays. The government announces plans to reopen international travel, but holidaymakers will have to pay for COVID tests, leading to criticism from airports and airlines.
Police respond with water cannon after coming under attack in Belfast during another night of violence in Northern Ireland.
Good morning. Rose is in full bloom at the Masters. Englishman Justin Rose was the star performer on the opening day at Augusta as he opened up a 4-stroke lead and is 7 under par. And we'll be meeting the jockey at 6:30 who's preparing to take on the sports elite as the Grand National returns tomorrow. She's hoping to become the first female winner, and her horse is trained by her mum.
And roll up, we've got all the fun of the fair. Good morning from Blackpool Pleasure Beach, where they're preparing to reopen on Monday morning for their 125th season, and somehow I've got the job of testing the rides.
Good morning. We have got some colder weather on the cards once again over the next few days. Some snow showers across Scotland today, patchy rain further south. I'll be here all morning with all your weather details.
Good morning. It's Friday, the 9th of April. Our top story this morning. Plans to reopen international travel for holidaymakers from England have been unveiled with a requirement to pay for coronavirus tests.
The government stopped short of saying if foreign trips can resume next month, but has also outlined a so-called traffic light system, which will be used to categorise countries based on risk.
Let's take you through some of the detail. For places on the green list, travellers will be asked to take a test before they return to England and pay for a costly PCR test, typically £120, 2 days after arriving home.
Now, if you're coming to England from countries on the amber list, you'll be also asked to self-isolate for 10 days and pay for a PCR test on days 2 and 8 on return. And passengers from red list destinations will be required to pay for 10 days in a quarantine hotel.
Yes, those plans have been met with widespread frustration by some in the travel industry. Here's our transport correspondent, Caroline Davies.
We may be dreaming of sunshine and summer getaways, but would you pay around an extra £100 per person when coming back from your trip overseas?
I think it's very disappointing.
The boss of EasyJet isn't impressed at this part of the government's plan to reintroduce international travel in England.
I think it's a blow to all travellers who were wanting to go and see friends and families and going on a holiday this summer. And I think in particularly the concern why there are now 2 test systems in what they call the green category.
Today's report says that passengers coming from the lowest risk green-rated countries will still need to take one of the more expensive PCR tests when they arrive back in England and pay for it themselves, currently around £100 each. Instead, the industry want to use the cheaper and quicker lateral flow tests. The government says PCR testing will allow them to monitor positive cases and check for variants of concern. The report also says that if travel does go ahead, countries which will be on the green list will be announced in early May. There'll be a watch list for countries at risk of being changed to amber, and there'll be a new consumer rights for ticket refunds. The industry is already gearing up for international travel on the 17th of May. Whether that will happen won't be confirmed either way until early next month. The flight simulators here are in use 24 hours a day, with pilots yearning to get back to the skies.
For pilots, we as a group are tremendously looking forward to getting back in the air again. Pilots don't want to be on the ground any more than aircraft want to be on the ground, and for us, we are really trying to respond to any pent-up demand so that we're fully ready to go when the government gives the green light on certain routes in the future.
This announcement is not the grand reopening the industry was looking for, but after months of travel restrictions, the easing looks likely to take time. Caroline Davis, BBC News.
Yes, we will find out more about the system and how it's intended it should work. We will be joined by the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps. That's on Breakfast here at around 7:30 this morning. If you have any questions, let us know this morning. We'll get more detail then.
Other news to bring you. There has been another night of rioting in Belfast with petrol bombs, fireworks and stones thrown at police.
Officers used water cannon for the first time in 6 years in an attempt to restore order, as James Reynolds now reports.
In Belfast, the night was lit up. This latest unrest came on the nationalist side, not far from the wall separating the city's two communities. The police responded with water cannon, the first time they've done so in 6 years. The First Minister says these scenes have taken Northern Ireland backwards. Last night's clashes weren't on the same scale as Wednesday, where rioters on the Loyalist side hijacked and firebombed a bus. Some of those gathered were in their early teens, far too young to remember the era of troubles that the 1998 Good Friday Agreement pledged to end for good.
History has shown very, very clearly in relation to Northern Ireland, one side acting on its own, whether it's within Northern Ireland or between the two governments or whatever, doesn't succeed. It only ever succeeds to bring peace or stability when both sides are working together. That's going to require joint action by governments. It's going to require the Assembly and the Executive working really with a single voice through the various parties that are there.
We join the British, the Irish, and the Northern Irish leaders in their calls for calm. We remain, as you have heard us say before, steadfast supporters of a secure and prosperous Northern Ireland in which all communities have a voice and all communities enjoy the gains of a hard-won peace. This is something that the President has spoken to quite passionately in the past.
The past itself is what overshadows this unrest. Northern Ireland's fractures now reach its younger generation. James Reynolds, BBC News.
From today, everyone in England has access to 2 rapid coronavirus tests a week, which can provide results in around 30 minutes.
The lateral flow kits will be available at testing sites, pharmacies and through the post. Here's our health correspondent, Dominic Hughes.
Hi, can I pick up a box of lateral flow tests, please? Is that possible? Thank you.
Now available at your local pharmacy, lateral flow tests are the quick and easy way to tell if you're ill with coronavirus. They've already been rolled out in schools and many workplaces. They're also available at testing centres, online or via work. And pharmacists say they can offer help and advice if needed.
When the time comes where tests need to be accessed, we're an obvious choice where you can go and get a test, get a quick result, and also if you've got any questions about the vaccine or the pandemic, it can all be answered in one setting.
It takes only 30 minutes to get a result from a lateral flow test, which involves swabbing the throat and nose. It's believed the test gives 1 false positive in every 1,000, where someone is wrongly identified as having been infected with the virus. So people are being urged to follow up with a more reliable PCR test if they do return a positive result. Extra testing is not without its critics. Some argue it's a waste of money unless people have more support to isolate when they have to. But given more than 1/3 of those who have the virus show no symptoms, ministers argue that testing remains an essential part of the response to the virus. At this Macclesfield pharmacy, they are already well into the rollout of the second jab to those most at risk. And health experts believe it's this combination of vaccinations and testing that will get us out of this pandemic. Dominic Hughes, BBC News, Macclesfield.
The UK's leading sports bodies are backing the use of vaccine passports and COVID testing as a way of getting full crowds back. In a joint letter to the leaders of the major political parties, the group says a certification process could allow fans to return as quickly as possible. It warns that the system must not be discriminatory and should protect privacy.
The Welsh Government is speeding up the easing of its COVID restrictions as infection levels continue to drop. Gyms will be allowed to reopen and people from 2 households can bubble up to meet indoors. This is from the 3rd of May instead of the 10th of May. The dates for reopening the hospitality industry have not changed.
Now, Muslims who observe the Islamic holy month of Ramadan are being reassured that receiving a coronavirus vaccination will not break their fast.
From Monday evening, many will refrain from food and drink during daylight hours. Harry Farley has this report.
The Al Abbas Islamic Centre in Birmingham is one of many places of worship that has been converted into a vaccine centre. For now, their focus has switched from saving souls to saving lives.
Allahu Akbar.
There has been some debate among Islamic scholars. But the majority now say the COVID vaccine does not break the fast.
We know that a lot of people, a lot of Muslims are a bit concerned about having their COVID vaccination during Ramadan, and many people believe that having an injection actually breaks the fast, but it doesn't at all because it's not considered nutrition, so it's absolutely fine to have the COVID vaccination while we're fasting.
Ramadan will look different this year to normal. The British Islamic Medical Association has issued guidance for how to celebrate safely. There have been fears about vaccine take-up among some ethnic minority groups. But there are signs initiatives like this in Birmingham are having an impact.
We know that between January and March there has been an increase in the uptake of vaccines from the Black, Asian and ethnic minority groups, and that's positive news. A lot of that is due to the grassroots organisations and faith-based organisations going into the communities to dispel the myths and readdress those concerns that the communities are having. But there's much work to be done, and we really need to try and make sure we continue with this momentum.
Some vaccine sites will be staying open late during Ramadan so Muslims can come after they've eaten. But the message from NHS and Islamic leaders is get the jab, even if you're fasting.
Thank you so much. Yeah?
Harry Farley, BBC News.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.